Midnight here with another special report. Despotic nations have always embraced new media for propaganda purposes. The Nazis had Triumph of the Will, the Soviets put out marionettes, Cossacks of the Cuban, and just so many more films, books, radio programs, leaflets, and every conceivable type of written, oral, or visual communication. So it really doesn't surprise me that the Islamic Republic of Iran put out a first-person shooter glorifying a renowned war hero, or war criminal, depending on your interpretation, an unabashed terrorist. General Qassem Soleimani was a high-ranking officer in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, who is often considered the second most powerful person in Iran, behind the supreme leader. Cutting his teeth in the Iraq-Iran War of 80 to 88, he eventually became commander of the IRGC Quds Force, which handled extraterritorial and clandestine military operations and would put him in the crosshairs of the US military. Though in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, Qassem's forces fought alongside the US against the Taliban, and he spent much of his later years battling ISIS, but he also had, let's call them extracurricular activities. Qassem tussled with ISIL in Iraq, but he also turned his attention towards the West, with his forces training and equipping terrorists who killed up to 600 American troops between 2003 and 2011. Not surprisingly, he hasn't been the most popular guy in Washington, which designated him a terrorist in 2005 and again in 2011, with President Trump labeling the IRGC-QF a foreign terrorist organization in 2019. To date, the IRGC is the only foreign state entity on the US State Department's list of foreign terrorist organizations. Finally, in 2020, the US had enough of Qassem and assassinated him in a drone strike, giving him untold propaganda value as a martyr. And that eventually led to the PC shooter and, I quote, the Commander of the Resistance Amerli battle. The title refers to ISIL's siege of the Iraqi town of Amerli, which was eventually broken by the Iraqi military and local resistance led by General Qassem. The game was developed by an offshoot of the Basij cyberspace organization, part of IRGC, and as to the why, the director of the organization, Moslem Moeen, said the following: "The Islamic Revolution's general strategy is defensive, and in this game we are promoting our defensive strategy."
The Iranians were saying that they had a certain number of people being held hostage.
The Iranian Revolution and the hostage crisis that took place in its wake.
Ahmadinejad told an audience that, quote, "This origin of corruption will soon be wiped off the earth's face."
Yeah. Defensive. While the game doesn't cast America as the baddies, it definitely does everything in its power to lionize someone that most people would agree was in fact a terrorist. As some anonymous member of the IRGC, you partake in vicious urban warfare against Islamic State militants, who mostly spout one or two things in barely accented English. My first thought was this was an English translation that I saw, but then most of the other dialogue is in Arabic. So they either wanted to more easily differentiate between the good guys and the bad guys, so to speak, or they were sending not-so-subtle signals towards the US. From a purely technical level, it's not awful. I've seen worse. In the 90s, the textures and assets in this 2022 game are a throwback to the early 2000s, and not in a nostalgic sense. The weapons all pretty much sound the same, and the music is a mix of action film cliches and 80s synthesizers, and both of which cut in and out at will. I suppose the game's not too bad for an indie developer, if the cyber division of a theocratic dictatorship special forces counts as indie. In fact, this isn't Iran's first stab at interactive propaganda. When 2011's Battlefield 3 cast Iran as one of several bad guys, the Islamic Republic vowed to answer the game with, quote, "an eye for an eye." And so they released a first-person shooter, The Attack on Tel Aviv, which is exactly what it sounds like. And from that point forward, Iran's government took over domestic games development, leading to Commander of the Resistance Amerli battle. So as protests heat up, with the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in police custody, the latest rallying cry, Iran hopes to win the propaganda war and rehabilitate both its own image and that of General Qassem Soleimani. Thanks for joining me for another special report. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my televisual program, and I'll see you next time. This is Jimmy Midnight signing off.